So welcome to the first podcast from Dominion Lighting. This is Matt Rowan. I'm the guy who runs this business and also the one kind of in charge of the brand and a lot of our showrooms and design. So wanted to take this as an opportunity to kind of connect with folks out there, cover a couple cool topics on things that we're doing, things that are happening within the industry, and even trends out there for people to pay attention to as we kind of move through things. So welcome. You will hear some stuff that's interesting. I'll probably ramble a little bit, but that's kind of what I do. And just a heads up, my son here is in the room. He refuses to actually talk, but he is making unbroken eye contact with me, hoping to trip me up. So if you do hear me trip up, I'm going to blame that on my son, Will. One of the first things that we were actually told when we kind of were brought on board to start this project was that we had to kind of completely rethink what we were doing as a lighting showroom. Lighting showrooms had always existed as something that was kind of just about selling things. They were usually pretty cluttered. The ceilings were too low. You really couldn't see a lot of stuff. And there wasn't really a lot of rhyme and reason to what was out there. So when the internet kind of rose and took over a lot of the, quote unquote, selling things sort of category, the best way that we could keep up and maintain relevancy in the marketplace was actually to kind of pivot a little bit. We were always selling the idea of expertise, but with this, we really wanted to kind of bump that up and really focus on that. So I think a lot of folks have heard me say, the term lighting Sherpa, which I really kind of I like because it's kind of descriptive. A lot of our customers come to us kind of feeling a little lost, and they have an idea that they want to do something cool within their house, but they don't quite know what to do. They're a little overwhelmed with the choices. So this is where we kind of come in. The thing that's really important about redesigning and rethinking the showrooms is we wanted to make sure that we had a space that express this idea of expertise without us having to say it, right? We wanted people to be able to walk into the space and say like, hey, these guys know their stuff. There's some really cool stuff that I hadn't seen before. They're the ones who I can turn to. They're going to be kind of my trusted advisor as I go through this and, kind of get inspired by some of the things that they have to show. When we did first kind of start this whole design process, we did start with a visioning session where we weren't even talking about the shape of the space. We pulled everything together, looking at other images of spaces that were not lighting related or showroom related, to get a good idea of just what everything could look like if we just started with a clean slate, threw everything out. And then as we slowly kind of developed things, it was really based upon that primary design brief of throw everything out and rethink it, make it an experience, do make sure that it is doing exactly what we want it to do, which is, express that level of expertise. Have a little bit of inspiration thrown in there, get people excited about the idea of lighting so that when they do leave the space, they have a completely different concept of what lighting is and really how important it is for their house or home or business. There are a couple components within the showroom right now, the way that we ended up developing it. So one thing that we wanted to focus on was the idea of each one of these fixtures is really kind of like an individual art piece. A lot of time and money has been spent on developing these pieces, bringing them to market, a lot of care. We wanted to show them the way that they kind of deserve to be shown, so people were able to focus on them. So one side of our showroom we call the gallery, and what we've done is, as opposed to having all the the traditional thing of all the light fixtures kind of hung all together, same height, where you really can't see anything beyond what's in front of you right there, we separated it out. Some of the design principles that we see in graphic design, architectural interior design, are also really relevant when we're designing a showroom. You need empty space in order to appreciate the stuff that is in front of you. Otherwise, it's cluttered and you kind of shut down mentally when you're looking at stuff. So this gallery space allows us to really celebrate those fixtures. Because we put things that are underneath it that keep people from walking underneath, that allows us to hang stuff actually much lower. And that allows people to get up really, really close to the fixtures. One of the really important things about coming into a physical space and seeing the fixtures in person is being able to touch and feel and see the quality of the finishes, the quality of the construction, the details that you normally would not really be able to see online when you're kind of going through a web catalog, things like that. The other thing too is a lot of those images are photoshopped. And we can't Photoshop stuff in here. So you do see this stuff in person. And I think when people are spending a fair amount of money on these fixtures, they want to make sure that they feel comfortable with it, that they really, really know what they're getting, as opposed to getting a surprise when something arrives in the mail. So when we do talk about some of the art in the space, we do show our fixtures as art. We also use this as an opportunity to bring in real art. The space itself, because we do talk about it being a gallery, lends itself beautifully to showing other artwork in the space. It doesn't actually detract. The thing that we found is that artwork in the space versus the artwork that's created in lighting complement each other beautifully, and they kind of show each other off even better than if they were shown on their own. Because the space is kind of embedded within the community, we're deep here in Arlington, we wanted to take it as an opportunity to celebrate those community artists that are around that otherwise wouldn't really have a place to show their artwork, to get the attention of people who otherwise wouldn't know about them or even visit an art gallery. When we do talk about some of the design of the space, we're always trying to do this empathetic design of getting into our customers' heads. When our customers are in the process and thinking about making changes within their house, it's usually not just one thing. Lighting is usually a part of a larger project. And when people are in that mindset of making changes, of improving things, if we are able to put artwork in front of them, that's really great stuff that they otherwise wouldn't see, the chances are higher that they're going to incorporate that into their new design as well. So it really is kind of a win-win both for the customers as well as these artists. And it's been really successful. We've had multiple shows, both smaller scale ones with some local art groups, and then larger scale ones with even kind of like larger arts organizations. The last one that we had was the Arlington Visual Art Studio Tour of VAST. And that was really, really great to be able to show their stuff in the space in the spring. The coolest thing about her sculptural work that she does is she kind of takes two different directions. One is very structured. There's a sculpture that is made up of chairs that are stacked on top of each other, all made in metal oxidized. And then there's another one that's made entirely out of found metal, found pieces. Really, really cool stuff, and it goes beautifully within the space. We're excited to show that. Another artist that we do have shown in the space right now is David Carlson. He's been a great partner for us. He was actually one of the first people to bring us to a lot of the community arts organizations, give us some exposure to them, and help us collaborate with them and really kind of find people that we otherwise wouldn't have access to. So when we're looking at the space, it does function as this art gallery. We also do make the space available for community organizations and nonprofits. Because we close at 5 p.m. every day, otherwise the space really isn't used all that well. And there's no other space like this in Arlington, so we do make this available for those events. When we renamed Lee Highway to Langston Boulevard, the local groups came to us and actually wanted to use the space as the center for those celebrations. So we had speakers, we had kind of a catered event. We had a exhibit that we put up about the local history of color. And when I say local, it's like hyper local. We're talking about like blocks that otherwise no one would have access to. It's something that is almost like a hidden history, but it's an incredibly important thing when we do talk about this community here. And so we wanted to make sure that it had a platform for that. It was so popular that something that was already intended as being temporary, we've just decided to make permanent. There's no point in taking it down. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had that available, embedded within the community for us. And the cool thing is that people are actually coming into the showroom just to see that exhibit. So we're pretty happy to be able to do that. So when we were designing the space, we created what we call personas. And we do that when we're designing to get ourselves in that sort of empathetic headspace to understand what the individual needs are for each group. So we did create 3 personas that really kind of capture a lot of what I would say is our primary clientele. So we have our regular retail shoppers, we have our designers, and we have our home builders and contractors. All of them have very different needs. I think the ones that are probably most in need of help, the ones that probably feel the most loss, are actually more of our residential homeowners because they don't have that level of expertise or projects under their belt to kind of help them direct things from the very beginning. The other thing that we wanted to make sure that we were catering to were those designers. Designers have a very interesting set of needs and sort of outlook on things. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that designers can't possibly be experts at everything that goes into a project. Instead, in some ways, they're almost like air traffic control, where they know the people that they want to turn to, and they know how to direct things, maybe even act as a little bit more of a conductor of an orchestra, but they're not the one playing all the individual instruments. So for us, we knew we wanted to be that expert that they could turn to who's going to make things easier for them to help to troubleshoot problems before they exist, but also give them new information that we find from going to markets, things like that. With our contractors, we are very much in a troubleshooting sort of frame of mind for them. They are very task oriented. So we want to make sure that it's easy for them to get to the things that they need within the space, kind of in a hassle free, and then our experts that we have on staff here are able to give them the right specifications right off the bat so that they don't end up running into issues later on that are going to cost them money. So when I do talk about the idea of being, lighting Sherpas or trusted advisors, we really do try to be that in different ways for our 3 different categories of clientele. It's really rewarding, I think, when you engage in these projects, particularly once you get to the end and people are incredibly proud of the stuff that you've done. They're really excited to post those things on social media, both themselves and have us do it as well. And I cannot tell you how many times we have people that are just coming in repeatedly. It's hard to get new customers. It's easy to get those repeat customers to come in. And that we know is kind of the level of success when we see people who have been working with us for years or new folks who come on and discover us. And then all of a sudden we're their go-to. We get an avalanche of projects coming our way from these designers. That's what we want. Because we did, unfortunately, before we undertook the design, we were hearing from our design partners, they were embarrassed to bring their clients into the space. It reflected poorly on them. So we want to make sure we could do the total opposite on that, and that we could create a space that they were excited to bring their clients to, that they knew would kind of create a nice little halo around their level of expertise. We have a really awesome team, and we've actually been kind of adapting our team from what it was before to people who really do have design training coming right out of school. So when you do call in, you'll probably hear from Ingrid. She's our host here in the Arlington showroom. If you do call in on Saturdays, you'll hear from my son Will, who also works as the showroom host just on Saturdays, but he's doing some work for us here in the summer. So when we do talk about family business, apparently it's mine too. So when you do call in, usually we'll field questions that you have, and then we'll pass you along to one of our team members based upon the specific things that you need. Everyone has certain levels of expertise in certain areas, so we want to make sure that we're matching you up with the right team member. Within each showroom, we have what we call showroom team leads. They're the ones who really kind of manage the team. They're the ones who oversee kind of the entire operation. And then on top of that, we have Amanda Leonard. She is our director of showrooms, who is awesome. She works with a lot of the operational side of things, as well as being a key buyer for us. And then I oversee the entire business, all 3 showrooms. So when folks do come in, what they can expect is, first, we're going to do kind of what we call like the top of the funnel, where we show them a lot of things. We show them a lot of options. The great thing about things is not only do we have hundreds of fixtures hanging in the showroom, but we also carry about 300 separate lines, which means we have options of thousands and thousands of fixtures. We'll present a lot of things to get a good idea of kind of the taste and the direction that people want to look at. Then we'll use that to narrow the funnel down to the very specific selections that they'll make. And then we place the orders. One of the big questions that people have is whether or not things are in stock. So we do keep things in stock, and we've actually changed the way that we've been purchasing to make sure that we're matching how people install things within their houses. And what that means is whenever we buy things like pendants that are normally installed in 3s, we have them in numbers of 3s. Same thing with sconces, those are in 2s, flush mount things 2s, lanterns for the outside, those are also purchased in 2s. We do want to make sure that if people do have a desperate need, we frequently have customers that come in, they have an electrician waiting for them at the house and they don't have a fixture yet. We can give them something from our stock, or, if we need to, just right off the floor. We do sell off the floor. And one of the great things about that is that means we constantly have rotating models for people to see. So coming in day to day, week to week, you're going to see different stuff that's rotating through. We want to make sure that we're always showing kind of the latest and greatest, and also the stuff that you can't see anywhere else. We don't really want to have a lot of copycats. Those things people know, those are easy to specify out of a catalog. What we do want to show people are things they've never seen. So things that are following the new trends that are coming up, not the ones that have kind of passed, and things that are new finishes, new shapes. I think LEDs give us the opportunity of really changing the shapes of lighting fixtures so that they're not based around a bulb. We can almost do pure sculptures that are illuminated. So we do want to show those things so that people get a good understanding of it, particularly when they're things that you really do need to see in person to understand. Photographs sometimes don't do these new sculptural shapes justice. What you can expect to see coming in further installments of this market updates, we'll dive into a little bit more specifics on certain kinds of technologies, certain types of fixtures. We'll also cover some really cool tips and tricks on things. There are a lot of interesting, quick little things that we can share with a lot of our listeners to help them do a lot of things on their own. As much as we want to say like, hey, we want to be your expert, we want to teach other people to be experts on their own so that they can make a lot of these decisions independently. We do go to lighting markets twice a year. So we are able to bring some of the latest and greatest stuff that no one's seen back to the showrooms and share that with folks. If you're looking for more information, feel free to drop by our website at dominionlighting.com. We also have a presence on Instagram, Facebook, and even TikTok coming up. And we look forward to seeing you. Make an appointment with some of our designers to come through the space. You're welcome at all times to come into the showrooms just to look around. But we do recommend that if you do want to work with somebody, make an appointment to make sure that someone can dedicate that time to your project. So thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing more of you.